Well, hello everybody, and it's welcome to the live. Loads of people here already, which is fantastic. So I'm Gary Bembridge. This, of course, is Tips for Travelers. This is live. Now, many people watch this after, which is fantastic. Just a reminder, this is not a regular video. Everything that you hear is driven by people asking. The reason I'm saying that is I often get comments after because people watch them afterwards saying I don't like this type of format, which is great, of course, but just bear in mind that everything that you see here is driven by people asking question live. The goal is to get your questions answered. So please, 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 of course, if you have a question, pop them in the chat. Write the word question, because that makes it so much easier for me to spot them amongst all the chats. And I've already seen some questions coming in and various people kind of answering them, which is great. So let's get going. So it's a beautiful, sunny, warm day in London. It's 27 degrees Celsius. It's like 80 degrees Fahrenheit. I've had a really busy weekend, actually. Had my sister staying and my mother-in-law staying. Mark, unfortunately, was kept up in the US for work, so I was going solo, and they didn't drive me completely crazy. So that was great. We did Buckingham Palace, State Departments. We did Lift 109 at Battersea. And if you want to know more about that, look at Instagram. Anyway, enough of that. You're not here to hear about my weekend. I hope you've had a great weekend. So let's get straight into the questions. So I will answer questions for the next 60 minutes. I will try and talk slower than I did last week. Lots of comments from people saying I spoke too fast. So I'll try and go slower, maybe do shorter answers and talk slower. So Linnea here, which is great. Linnea is a very loyal fan, one of my patrons, which is also great. Always has challenging questions or comments. So Linnea is asking, have you cruised Alaska at the end of August into early September? So basically, I guess the period you're going to now. If so, your thoughts / opinion versus early in the season. So Linnea, I haven't cruised at that time of the year, and I've always cruised early in the season because I like early in the season. However, most people like going later, end of August into September, partly because it's peak time, but also it tends to be a great time for wildlife. So it's a really good time, for example, to see bears. The salmon run is happening, so the bears are out. There's more sightseeing around bears. In terms of whales, I believe it's also a pretty good time to see whales, etc. So that's also good. So that's also why a lot of people then try and go that time of the year. So let's keep going. And hopefully that answers your question. So in terms of opinion of time, that would be, it's really preference. I like going early in the year. It's a little bit quieter. It's a little bit less busy, because that August, September time is a very busy time of the year. Cherry's here, Janet's here, Rosemary. So Rosemary has a question which is around Perth. Now, Perth is one of my favorite cities within Australia. So Rosemary's going to Perth next June after taking the Indian Pacific train. So those of you who don't know, I guess we took the Indian Pacific train to my mother-in-law, Sally, who was here this weekend, on the Indian Pacific train. A great experience. And I actually believe, Rosemary, they're actually making it slightly longer experience. Or was it again, they're making it slightly longer? Anyway, it's a great experience. So how many days would you recommend staying in Perth to see the Pinnacle Desert, Margaret River, and Rottnest Island? So we didn't actually go out to Pinnacle Desert. I've been to Perth, I think 3 or 4 times, counting when I was there recently. But we've done the Margaret River and Rottnest Island. So you need a full day really to do Rottnest Island properly. There's different options. You can do cycling, e-bikes. They've got e-bikes there now, or they have tours that go around. So you need a good day to spend time at Rottnest Island. So that's one full day. You need at least one good day to get down to Margaret River. Or what we did actually is we actually spend time staying in Margaret River if you want to go all the way down and spend time. So you probably need maybe 2 days, maybe at least one overnight there. You can do a part sort of day tour, but it's quite far away. So I would say you're looking about 4 or 5 days if you really want to, not be too rushed. Rosemary, I don't think you're a big beach person, but the beaches, of course, are fantastic. So like Scarborough Beach, City Beach, and so on is just absolutely fantastic. Very envious of you doing that. I would love to get to do that again. So Ken, good to have you here again. Have you cruised Iceland? Yes, I have cruised Iceland a couple of times now. We're looking at a Viking cruise that circles Iceland. So Iceland is a fantastic, really fantastic itinerary. Iceland is such a unique place, because basically, it's basically sitting on this bubbling mass of lava, as you know, with the volcanoes. It's being ripped apart as the continental divides kind of part. So it's just this incredible hot bed of stuff, literally and metaphorically, and it has the most weird landscape. So it's really brilliant. Now, Viking are really good at doing the circumnavigation. They have a really great itinerary. There are others that do it. Many lines do it, but I think going on a smaller ship line is a really good idea, particularly because if you've watched my video from last week, which I talk about ports that are clamping down, Iceland has become really popular. So Isafjorda is restricting the amount of cruise lines that can go then. From Isafjorda, there's some great excursions, but so they've limited the amount of cruise passengers to go there daily. So those smaller ships are much better positioned to get in there. So they have a great itinerary. Now, I think someone commented, was it Bill or somebody had commented that they'd done that itinerary, but they are really good because, of course, you'll have your 3 or 4 speakers on board, which will dive into it. The thing that I don't know what, I haven't looked at the Iceland excursions that Viking offer, but what I would strongly encourage you is go on out of Reykjavik, and I think someone mentioned make sure you stay in Reykjavik. You do the I think it's the Golden Circle, and is it out of Akureyri? I can't remember exactly which. You do Jaws of the North, which are sort of big, full, long day excursions. If they aren't offered by Viking as their default, please do those, because that's when you really get on and see the geysers and that continental divide stuff, the bubbling mud pools and all that sort of stuff. Now, I have a video called Best Things to Do in Iceland, Ken, which may also help that, but it's really fantastic. It was Sherry had done that, and again, the point that Sherry's making is spend time in Reykjavik. Travel agent Sarah here, which is great to see. Steve, hi there, good to see you, Steve. What's your take on loyalty program crossing brands under Royal Caribbean? Will there now be so many upper tier people that the benefits are diminished? Priority tender, for example. So, Steve, I did touch a little bit on this. Was it last week or the week before? I can't remember. I wouldn't personally be that concerned. I think it's fantastic. I love the fact that they're doing this because when I was on Royal Caribbean, when I went on Symphony of the Seas, because I had status through Celebrity, because they were doing that mix and match then, I went straight in at Diamond on Royal Caribbean, which gave me some perks like priority embarkation. It gave me access to what was then called the Diamond Lounge, is now called, I think, the Royal Lounge, and a few other bits of perks and stuff like that. Drinks, oh, that's right, you've got so many drink coupons per day. Quite generous, actually. I mean, it's probably 4 drink coupons a day, which, okay, I don't drink alcohol, but it was still great because I could get stuff. And if you drink alcohol, it's great because you can get stuff. So in reality, I don't think that's going to be a massive issue, because in reality, if you're going on a Silver Sea, for example, and you're a diehard Royal Caribbean user, I'm not sure that that's going to drive a lot of people across the Silver Sea, because it's 3-4 times the price unless you're getting higher grade. So I didn't see it diminishing things a lot. I guess your point is on Silver Sea, it may put a little bit more pressure on. Now, I'm desperately hoping, because I'm going on Silver Sea at the end of October on Silver Endeavour, which Mark and Anita, who also follow, I don't know if they're here. In fact, I don't think they're, because they're messaging me separately on WhatsApp, updating on their expedition they're doing in Greenland. But But what I'm really hoping is that's a 3-week trip, and with the status that I've got, I get free laundry, because I'm not at a high enough cabin grade to get free laundry. So I'm really hoping that kicks in. So I'm not sure that it will make a big thing between the two. I think you're right. Priority tending on those smaller ships could be an issue, but I'm not sure that people will jump around that much. I might be wrong. Hopefully that I'm not wrong. Mark, good to see you here. Mark is another regular, always again has challenging questions. My wife and I and our 14-year-old son are doing Queen Mary 2 transatlantic round trip from Southampton on Friday. So you can there and back. Fantastic. We're in Princess Grill and would appreciate any advice on maximizing our experience. So Mark, I think probably, I'm trying to think if I can add anything on top of, I did a video recently, Mark, which is called, although it may not sound like it's addressing this issue as much, I think probably will, which is called something like, do you need to go grills to get the full Cunard experience? Something like that. And I dive a little bit into that. I think the critical thing would be is, with your 14-year-old son, it can be a little bit hit and miss on how many other teens and stuff they're going to be. But I would encourage him to kind of connect a little bit with the kids club and just see if they have a good teens program, see how many teens are on board, that maybe he can connect with, assuming that he's sociable and wants to do that. Because obviously the program, although it's quite a small club, what I've heard from people who've had kids or teens on there, they found they generally have a pretty good program of activities and helps kind of them get to know each other. I think the critical thing would be is my one key tip that I would say is in the grill, the table allocation is, let me step back. When on the day you embark, make sure that you go to the Princess Grill for lunch as early as you can. And it normally opens around 1 p.m. and you should get priority embarkation because you're in the grills. Go to lunch as early as you can so you can see which table the maitre d' is allocating you. And if you don't like the table, you have plenty of opportunity to change the table. And you should be able to have a table just for the three of you, assuming you want three. There's plenty of opportunity. But that would be my big tip, because if you don't like your table and you're going to be on particularly for so long, go early and change it. That would be my one key tip. And then basically every night there is, on the transatlantic, there's 4 or 5 things happening every hour. So it's a little bit old fashioned in a way, but literally sit down every night to just kind of scope out what you're going to be doing so you don't miss out on stuff. Most people come back from a transatlantic complaining that they have missed out on way too much stuff. Steinvolt Madchen. Now, I don't know whether I'm still pronouncing that correctly, and I'm breaking it up at the right points when you've asked question before, so hopefully that's right. How would you compare cruising and land-based travel in Australia? I'm curious, as Australasia isn't particularly known for coastal destinations. Well, what's interesting about the Australia in reality is cruising is a fabulous way of getting a good sense of it, because the center of Australia, it has nothing. The red center is just miles and miles and miles of nothing. I mean, obviously there's these vast, ranches and things. And obviously in the center, you've got Alice Springs and you've got Uluru, which of course is very famous. But actually around the sides of it are where you've got all the towns. So you've got, Cairns, Port Douglas, Brisbane, Sydney, obviously, Melbourne, Adelaide, Kangaroo Island, Fremantle for Perth, etc., etc. So actually, it's a fantastic way of seeing it. Now, you don't get to spend enough time. So actually, if you want to see a little bit more of the landscape, you sort of need to do more internal travel. So we've often combined doing a cruise with some land stuff. So, for example, we did the Ghan once from Darwin down to Adelaide. We then met our friends in Melbourne, saw Melbourne, went down the coastal road, then got on the ship in Sydney and sailed from there. On our most, other times we've gone then done in the Pacific and stuff like that. So I think cruising is a great way of getting a sense of it, because everything is around the side. And of course, the distances within Australia are enormous. That train takes 4 days, for example, and the distances are enormous. So it's a really good way of getting a sense of it. We've tended to spend, say, a week or so before or after cruise. So once we did, when we did a thing, we ended in Australia, then we spent some time going to like the Gold Coast. So I would spend like a week doing some of those things. Although I've been to Australia quite a few times now, I've never been to Uluru, which I really need to get to. Sarah agreeing that, like me, she likes June for Alaska. Janet, when is the last live blog before our September cruise? Really good question, because one of the things I'm thinking of, Janet, is actually doing some sort of live thing just for people on the cruise at some point, which I need to think. So let me just have a look, just to remind people are wondering what I'm talking about. Let me just bring up the cruise. So next month on the week of, I think we embark on the 18th or the 19th, on the 19th of September, I have my next group cruise, which is the one at the top there, which is Canada and New England. And there's about 70 people on that. The one at the bottom is the other group cruise. So if you want to know, which is in early 2026. So that's what she's talking about. That's what I'm talking about with group cruises. So I'm not 100% sure. So I'm actually going to bring up quickly and have a look at the calendar, my calendar, and see. So where are we today? We are so there's going to be, we're on the 10th day. So the last of these lives will be on the 14th of September. So quite a few more to go before we get to the, before the, so it's 4 or 5 before. So I'm back quite a lot. What I'm thinking of doing though for the group cruise is maybe doing a live stream where people can join and talk a little bit about the group cruise and some of the activities and what's going on. Those who can't join, I'm hoping that the replay will help. So more on that to come through. Just a reminder, if you want to do the group cruises, this group cruise obviously done and dusted and sold. Both the group cruises sold out and the sailing sold out. For that July group cruise, we sold out our initial allocation of cabins, but because it was so popular, I've never expanded it beyond channel members and patrons. So if you want to become a channel member or patron, if you're interested in group cruise, you can join channel members from $2 a month or whatever, but you will get the details. It's just with the amount of supply and demand, opening it up wider, just we didn't have enough cabins, and I don't want to go for a big mega massive group cruise. So that's why I've done that. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, a couple of people have asked me this before, and I'll bring it up here. So Dave has asked the question. Just a reminder, write the word question on me so I don't miss questions like this. What is your favorite ever cruise in life? If you only had one more cruise, what would it be? So my favorite cruise of all time, I think, is going to Antarctica, and the one which includes South Georgia. I would say probably is my most favorite cruise because it is just an incredible experience. It's, you really get a sense of occasion, event. It is more spectacular. You can watch documentaries and videos and all sorts of things, but until you're physically there, it's just not the same. And to give you, when I was there the first time, I went on in 2019, at the end of the season, so beginning of 2019. And I was walking around deck, and we were in, I think it was Neko Bay, if I remember, or something like that. And we were just surrounded by all these incredible, ice-filled mountains, and there was icebergs and stuff in the bay. And someone messaged me saying about, you're so lucky to be on the cruise of your lifetime. And I made the resolution then that I would never go to Antarctica just once if I possibly could. So I've scrimped and saved and shuffled stuff around so to go more than once. And so I'm going on Silver Sea again, as I mentioned earlier. So that would be the one. I think also French Polynesia was pretty special, would be the second. But maybe I might pop it slightly. It would tussle a lot because French Polynesia is one that Mark really likes. But probably for me, anything through the Panama Canal is the other. I'm a complete geek when it comes to the Panama Canal. So but Antarctica would be, if only allowed one, Antarctica would be. Because this is a good challenge. Gary is asking, one Gary to another, how do you decide on what cabin type you go for? Is it mainly driven by cost/budget, itinerary, cruise line, or something else altogether? So Gary, part of it hinges, you're right, obviously there's budget and cost and grade. So a lot of it hinges around what grade of what cruise line I'm going on. So so if I'm going on a more premium, a luxury, ultra luxury, versus say if I'm going on a more mass market resort ship, or in sort of a premium water. So a lot of that hinges because obviously budget kicks in a lot. So so for example, the Silver Sea that I'm going on, I'm going in a sort of a balcony. So I'd always go in a balcony cabin because for me having a balcony is really important. So my criteria is always a balcony. So it's just because it's really important, even though I probably don't use the balcony as much as I would do. But for me, having the balcony, the full length, the glass, the ceiling to wall glass is really important. Being able to step out, look what you're coming in and out of port, the sound of the sea and stuff. So I would always start with balcony. Balcony for me is a must do. If I'm going on a cruise line, which where I think, and I can afford to do it, where a suite would add a lot to the experience. So for example, if I'm going on a premium line, if I'm going on say Holland America, or like when I went on Norwegian, or when I went on Royal Caribbean or MSC, I did try and go in a suite because it also gave some, because they have a lounge. So these are big, busy, packed ships, and I quite like the idea that I'd have somewhere sort of to escape to. And actually, budget-wise, depending on how it can be, you can kind of balance the budget out. But would normally be a balcony cabin is where I would start. And I would try and nudge it up to a suite if I can, particularly on those others. But when I'm going on like Silver Sea, Seabourn and stuff, it just is. I mean, you have so much included and whatever, so it just financially becomes a little bit crazy. Now, I know a lot of people would view as very different. So Emma Cruises, for example, takes a different approach. She would much rather go inside cabin, ocean view, go guaranteed. She's not fussed about the cabin choice, because she'd rather go on more cruises. I would rather go on a balcony for slightly fewer cruises than go on an inside cabin for more cruises, if that makes sense, just because that's what's really important to me. Hopefully I've answered it. I'm not sure if I have, but hopefully I have. Alex, what is your take on the recent negative term for reviews for Silversea? Is it still worth the money? So Alex, I was on Silversea a couple of months ago. I thought it was brilliant. I really liked it. So one of the things I've feel, and I have no data, so it's completely a feeling thing, is if you look particularly at Cruise Critic and you look at the Facebook groups, there seems to be, as you say, this tendency for people to rant a little bit more. What used to happen on Cruise Critic, you'd get the ranters and the ravers, if you like, and they sort of, between the two of them, you kind of balance each other out. But people seem generally speaking, across all cruise lines, not just Silversea. I get lots of emails and messages from people saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm booked on Oceania and see these terrible reviews. Oh my goodness, I'm going Whole America. I see these terrible reviews. I'm going on Princess, blah blah, etc. etc." So I think it's a general trend anyway, as a thing. So certainly my experience on Silversea was very positive when I went on Silver Spirit. Now that's one of their older ships. I thought the ship was in great condition. I thought the service was fantastic. I thought the food was good. I thought the excursions included were good. I think what people are particularly struggling with is, without a shadow of a doubt, Silversea is evolving. And I think particularly people who are long-term Silverseas are not liking some of the changes. So, small example. For example, in the UK, they have got rid of their local call center and have basically outsourced. I think it's to the Philippines or India. I can't remember which of the two, but they basically outsourced, or not outsourced, sorry, off shelf? No, off, you know what I mean? There's a term for it that my mind's gone blank on. Offshore it. That's the word, offshore it. And people have not liked that because they've felt that perhaps the people they're talking to are not as well briefed. They don't really understand Silversea enough. So I think there's things like that have changed. I think also people, particularly people who are very loyal to Silversea, are very concerned about the management changes. So I guess my mind's gone blank as well. I can picture her as well, the CEO who was the marketing person, who's now gone and joined Kempton. I was talking about the other week. Oh, I can't believe I've forgotten her name. Anyway, so they're concerned about them moving, them bringing more Royal Caribbean in. So I still think very strongly. I'll let you know in a couple of months' time more when I've been on Silver Endeavour. Certainly, as I was mentioning earlier, Mark and Anita, who are often on here, big supporters. They're currently on Silversea and they're very happy. And he sent messages saying the ship's great, the food's been great, the service has been great. They've been very proactive. But certainly I will know. So I'm seeing a lot of negativity around cruise lines at the moment, and Silversea people do feel more disgruntled. But what's interesting though, Alex, is it seems also when I look at the discussions around Nova and Ray, people seem very happy with those two ships, and those of course are their newest ships, which could mean they've got the A team, as it were, on. But people seem very keen, so we will see. But I will definitely let you know. Now Moritz asking the question on Celebrity: can you have multiple entrees in the special dining rooms, particularly the rooftop grill? In the special, now I don't know the answer to this offhand, but certainly I know on many that recent other cruise lines have been on, they do have an extra charge for multiple entrees, but I don't know the answer to that question offhand. So what I would suggest you do, Moritz, if you have a particular ship that you're about to go on, one of the things I do find helpful, even though I was talking about people ranting in Cruise Critic, is the Cruise Critic roll calls are really good for finding out what's happening on the ship currently, or actually the discussion groups are quite good. So going into the celebrity group on Cruise Critic, just searching that thing, like special dining, or actually asking the question, you will get someone who's on the ship or been on the ship in the last week or two answering that question. It's a really good way for getting really, really up-to-date questions. The cruise, as I mentioned earlier, the reviews sometimes a little bit more ranty and raving. So let's have a look. Just a reminder, write the word question because I don't want to make sure that I miss questions. So Genio, good to see you here. I don't know if I had a question from you before. Next year, it will be my first time using the retreat on Celebrity, which is great. I really like the retreat. It's quite pricey, but it's very nice. Do most folks find themselves staying within the retreat or also using the other areas of the ship? Eugenio, I guess it's going to differ a lot by people. I certainly found that, you know, if you really want a good swimming pool, if you particularly on Edge, Beyond, Apex, and so on, you know, the swimming pool, the little pool, or even on the Solstice class ships, that, you know, which just have more of a hot tubby plunge pool. It's really a plunge pool. So if you really want to have a proper lie by the swimming pool, people will go and use those because the pools are quite good on the Edge class ships. But I found a lot of people spend quite a lot of time up there, particularly on sea days, because it is a little bit quieter, a little bit easier to get seating, the bar service, and you can have lunch there. So it's very nice. And the lounge is really nice. But certainly, you know, once people are heading out, of course, to the bars, you know, in reality, people want to go to the bars where there's more buzz, you know, particularly in the atrium bars on both the Solstice class and the new ships, you know, because just more buzz, etc. there, especially restaurants. So I think, you know, they lean, you know, they're still going to use the rest of it. So don't, you know, people don't stick in the retreat because in reality, they're going to miss out on the entertainment, the special dining, the buzz of the bars, and so on. So I didn't find that. You know, I would find that the retreat, for example, the lounge, the deck was busy on sea days because it's, I mean, the lounge was never nearly that rammed. That was certainly my experience. Cherry, it likes talking about going even earlier in May. I've been in May once actually. May's also for Alaska is pretty good because it's one of the lowest rainfall seasons. There's lots of raining. Echo Bravo, another regular here, close to booking a San Diego to Vancouver repositioning cruise, which is very nice. The big question is whether to book starboard, land, or port ocean view. In reality, to be honest, it makes relatively little difference on that itinerary, because when you're sailing, you're going to be pretty far from land in practice. So it doesn't make a massive difference what you do. I mean, if you are worried about potentially missing out on any scenery that could be on land as you sail up the coast, obviously I would take the right hand side, the starboard side, if you're worried about it. But in reality, it doesn't make a big difference in terms of the whole scenery side, because you're pretty far away. I never, to be honest with you, I don't normally think too much about this. The only time I thought about it recently was when we were planning. So I'm doing a Panama Canal at Christmas, then that group cruise, which is Panama Canal. And I was thinking to myself, because I know both of those are going through the old canals, and I'm trying to think, I've always specifically chosen to be on the port side, the left-hand side, because I've wanted to be able to watch that side of the experience, because you get also to see things like the with the viewing platform and stuff. But I actually decided to take the starboard side, I think, on that. But in reality, what I realized is I'm never in my room anyway when you get to Panama Canal. You're out on port, out on the ports. Particularly, you know, so again, people often ask me for Alaska cruises if they're going to Glacier Bay, which side they should be on. My point is actually, if you're on the port side, you generally get the view if you stay in your cabin when you're going in, but the captain always turns around and shows you the other side anyway, and you probably be out on deck. So it's kind of a long way of answering the question, but I'm not that hung up about it, to be honest. Rhonda, we're doing a Panama Canal cruise on Oceania, very nice. So I guess is that on Serena? I think they're still running Serena on that one. Might be wrong. Have you taken non-cruise line excursions in Costa Rica, Colombia, and Nicaragua? No, I haven't, Rhonda. I have either Costa Rica. I've only done cruise line excursions there, and I partly, to be honest, you know, I've always felt just a little bit more secure doing that. That may be wrong of me, but I've always just felt, you know, I always feel that region's more politically kind of volatile or whatever, which is probably very stereotypical and probably wrong of me, but so no, I haven't. But of course, as you know, the Venturous shore excursions both offer options there. But it's very interesting you asked this question, Rhonda, because one of the things I'm thinking about ahead a little bit for the group cruises, whether I should try and look at doing some group excursions. I want to see how they go with the September one, and if I do, whether I would go again with Venture Shore or try and negotiate something with the cruise line. I was unsuccessful at negotiating with the cruise line to group line excursions, but we're going to kind of Canada, New England, which are pretty safe, standard kind of excursions. In reality, it's very limited capacity. So hopefully I sort of answered. The short answer to your question was no, but I gave you more information. Sherry, good morning. I'm planning to visit Japan. Very, very nice, very envious. I loved my cruise around Japan. I've done 2 now, and it's magnificent. For the first time next year, and I was wondering if you could recommend a cruise line with a great itinerary for an intro to the country. So Sherry, there are a couple that you could look at, and obviously it depends a little bit on what budget range you're looking at, but certainly if you look at the premium side, Holland America and Princess know the region very well, and they have some fantastic itineraries which do complete kind of navigations of Japan. One thing to notice, you'll always notice in a Japan cruise, you'll often pop across to like Korean port or something like that, because they have like the same rules the US does or Australia does, where they have to call on a foreign port. But they have some great itineraries. Now, some friends of ours recently did a celebrity circumnavigation, which they rated very highly. It is on one of their older ships, but those 3 do really good. On the slightly more premium side, I recently did, probably not that recent, last year, was it last year? I did beginning of last year on Regent, which was fantastic. But they do a great one. Oceania does a great one. But obviously that's on the sort of more kind of more costly end. The advantage with doing something like a Regent or even the Silver Sea itineraries is most of the excursions are included, and excursions in Japan are relatively expensive and can add quite a lot on. So when you are looking at your budget, Sherry, take a look at, if you're looking at, say, Holland America or Princess, also just take a look at their shore excursions, have a look at sort of what that's likely to cost you. And then take a look, actually, if you went on, say, a Viking or even a Regent, like how would that stack up? I think you'll probably still find the other one a little bit cheaper, but you do need to make sure that you build in some budget for good excursions. So like going to Kyoto, for example, will cost quite a lot of money, but is kind of an absolute must do. So let's have a look. Jeffrey, cruising for one. In 2026, I'm doing a partial Panama Canal transit. There is an execution, I'm guessing, excursion that takes you through all the way, then you drive back. Have you done that? I'm concerned about the long drive back. So Jeffrey, I haven't done that, but I had originally had that booked when I was on a Panama Canal partial transit, as similar to you doing, and literally it was when cruising got shut down, and we're actually heading into the Panama Canal as cruising got shut down, and Panama said we could still go through, but they canceled the excursions. So I would absolutely have done that excursion. The drive back in reality is not that bad in reality, because actually it's not that far. So the drive back, I guess the ship's going to wait in Colon. There's lots of tours, because what you'll find is when the ship gets into the Gatun Lake, loads of people will get off and they will go to the rainforest. They'll do the excursion all the way through, and there's a lot of buses and people coming back on that on that road trip. And I tend to remember it's not that long. It's only I can't remember how long the bus trip is. It's not massively long. I feel like it was like an hour or 2 hours. Maybe I'm wrong, but we did it once out of Cologne. We did the rainforest, which was maybe an hour then, hour back, something like that. But it's kind of fairly standard. So I wouldn't worry about that. But you're right. The big advantage is you're going to get to see the whole of the transit through. I was watching some videos recently actually about that little excursion, which I was quite excited because it's a smaller kind of ship, that it's a boat, I think, rather than a ship. So I think it's pretty. Certainly, I was very keen to do it. Tim, we're cruising with Princess for the first time and have noticed the exorbitant prices of the excursions. So excursions often, Tim will hinge. It's. I trust Tim. You're the chocolate orange fan. Good to see you here. We've noticed the exorbitant prices of the excursions. So a lot of that obviously depends on where you're going. But you're right. there's obviously a big markup because they're using local providers and they're taking their markup. What are the names of the independent excursion companies you sometimes mention? So Tim, I will put these in the show notes here after this. In fact, I will make a note. In fact, I've mentioned a couple of videos that I should probably let me put shore excursions. So when we finish this live, I will pop them in the show notes. But the two companies are Venture Ashore and Shore Excursions Group. Those are the two that I mentioned. There's also Viator one, and in fact, even if you've got Expedia, you can often find those as well. The reason I like Shore Excursions Group and Venture Ashore is you can pop in your cruise line, your cruise ship that you're going on the date, and it just brings up port by port the excursion. So it's not like a Viator; you sort of have to search Costa Rica or whatever. So I quite like that experience. KB in the UK, hi, good to see you. Will you ever make a comparison video for all brands of ship within a ship in the same video? I have done that, Kev. I did that video not so long ago. I will maybe put a link in that ship within ship video. So I did that maybe a month or two ago, where I compare all of them. So I've done that. You'll be pleased to know. So you'll be able to watch that immediately. So that's good. Yes and yes is the answer. Let's have a look. Lots of discussion about the Iceland, which is great. Tours by locals. Yes, Sherry mentioned Tours by Local is also quite popular one as well. I've never used Tours by Local, although I know many people have done that. Leslie W, hi. Good to see you. What footwear do you wear on board a ship? And do decks get slippery in the rain? Interesting. I've never been asked that one before. So that's a first. So in terms of footwear I wear on board a ship. Okay. So let's take a typical sea day. I actually quite like to wear flip-flops on the ship, particularly if I'm in a warm climate, partly because I just like my feet not being in shoes and stuff. So I kind of wearing flip-flops. So I wear flip-flops quite a lot. I assume you're talking not in the evenings and dressing up for dinner when obviously I'm going to wear smart shoes. So I wear flip-flops a lot. If I'm not wearing flip-flops, I wear trainers. Just because I find them really great, comfortable to wear around, particularly on a ship. One of the reasons I do that is, I walk around a lot on a ship because I'm either videoing or I'm one of these people because I want to go and look at what's going on and I want to go to the something and I want to go watch the trivia and I want to go watch the show, whatever's going on. And I just find those. So I love to wear flip-flops, particularly when I get up in the morning, go to breakfast or whatever, or trainers. And decks can get slippery, of course, in the rain. Not massively, though. It depends, again, a lot what type. Some of them have some of the Cunard ships, or the new one doesn't actually, Queen Anne doesn't, have the sort of the teak, the old traditional ones. Others have that more kind of, I don't want it to be like a paint / vinyl-y sort of stuff. So that's what I wear. Obviously in the evening, and I wear smart shoes, etc. So pretty casual, but you're right. I mean, sort of to your point, the advantage with trainers is they are, whether you head outside or inside, they're always kind of gonna work quite well. So that's what I wear. It'd be interesting to know actually what people wear. I feel like I should almost do a poll around what people are wearing. Laurel saying, great, not on the upcoming group. I'm on a Panama group cruise and having a live with that. Yeah, so great. I think that's good. I thought about the other day that it would be a good idea, and it's completely stealing an idea, actually. It's good ideas are worth stealing, I suppose. We're cruising for solos, which is a group which hosts lots of solo cruises. I noticed that they always do a live just before, and they run through the program and some of the questions, and the advantage is it becomes a bit of a resource. Tim, thanks very much for my chocolate orange donation. Thank you very much for that there. Okay, so I've answered the question in life. Michelle, you seem to have a penchant for cruising with Viking. What makes it so interesting better? It's interesting. I'm actually very, Michelle, I'm actually very mixed on Viking. So I did a video very recently, which I'll direct you towards, because I dive into this more in more detail there. And I talk about how I'm very divided. by Viking. The Viking ships are very beautiful. I find the service good. I mean, they are quite pricey, but you kind of can see where the money is going, if you know what I mean. They are very good if you're going to a region that you're either nervous about going to or uncomfortable about going to, because they do quite a lot of, I think I've called it hand-holding before, and people don't like me calling it that, or paternalistic, but they are quite, they are very good at kind of, if you're nervous, a nervous traveler, nervous about a region. But I do find them a little bit, and Viking people hate this when it says a little bit dull. I find they lack a little bit of kind of energy, excitement. Obviously, they don't have a casino, which I love a casino in the evening. I find the show's not great, a little bit dated. So there's a big lean towards, say, classical music, stuff like that, which is just not me particularly. But they are a fairly reliable go-to. So, but I only would choose Viking on a very specific itinerary where I wanted also that enrichment side. But take a look at that video, Michelle, because I think you'll see why I'm torn around them. But certainly Viking people are very loyal, and they don't like it when I'm less keen on them. So which comes back to the thing about earlier, we were talking about people who are big fans. It's going to be very interesting, I think, with Viking, now they're a publicly owned company, how they evolve, and that's going to be very, very interesting indeed. Let's have a look. Just a reminder, write the word question if you possibly can. Jana, I didn't miss your question. Greetings, my unmet friend. Please forgive me if this has been addressed previously, but how good are medical facilities on the larger cruise ships? Also on Viking, many thanks. So basically, Janet, the rule is that any ship that carries more than 12 passengers has to have a medical facility. The role of the medical facility is to basically stabilize people, if that's something to deal with, to sort out any issues and stabilize people. If there's anything of significance, is to get people off the ship as soon as they can into land-based care. So it's really it's a bit like an A&E in a way, I guess, although obviously you hope that they need to deal with all accident and emergency stuff. But the idea is they bring you in. If they can deal with it, they will deal with it. If there's something serious, the goal is to get you stable, get you off the ship. Sometimes even so much so that, of course, if it's really urgent, the ship will divert or they'll do medivacs or whatever. But they are quite. But so they are. You can, if you've done something on most ships. If they think you've broken your arm or your ankle or something, they can normally do an X-ray. They have the ability to do X-rays. They're normally sent. Then, of course, with new technology, it helps a lot. They're normally sent to more the central processing, which will. An expert will assess those. They have, a pharmacy where they can deal with most regular kind of issues. They cannot fulfill prescriptions, for example. So you can't go on and say, I've got a prescription for this drug. Can you fulfill it? No, they can't do that. But that's their real goal. I mean, you find that a lot of the doctors that I've spoken to or met, many of them actually come from an A&E kind of background, which is why I probably have that A&E thing in my head. They either come from an A&E background or kind of a general, a general practitioner kind of thing. It's a doctor that's used to just seeing a wide range of stuff. But that's really their goal, is to deal with the situation, stabilize you, and assess, can they do something for you because it's not that serious, or getting you off the ship. But they are pretty good and they are pretty expensive, but they're not massive. They do, if they have to sort of hold someone effectively in sort of like high maintenance or whatever, they can do that for a period of time to get you off. I mean, even on our most recent seaborne pursuit, because we were heading into a very remote area, we actually turned around after our first day and headed back into Darwin to medevac somebody, because once you're further away from land, they would have had to airlift someone out, for example. So hopefully that helps. Oh, Hetty is here. Hetty's on a big adventure on the North Atlantic, en route from Iceland to Ireland on the Zeta. Fantastic. And yes, I'm also enjoying travelogues. Hetty sends out little travelogues, which are great. The Boca Boys, yes, the Boca Boys are here, which is great, commenting on Nova. They had a great time on Nova. Some food venues need to work over, but people do seem to really like that thing. Sarah agreeing with me, which is always good. Travel agent Sarah agrees with me, which is always good. Seinfeld Mad Chen, another question. How do you research on less popular river cruises outside the Europe and the US, planning a Yangtze cruise in 2025, but found English info limiting and Chinese ones not very helpful. I do a couple of things, one of which I speak to travel agent Sarah and ask her, and she will find out stuff like that for me. Is actually one of the things. The other thing I do, which is going to sound slightly, no, it's not slightly strange, is I will do a lot of my research on YouTube. Obviously I'm biased a little bit because I create YouTube, but my view is you can find anything about anything on YouTube. If I have a problem with my iPhone, which I have at the moment, which is for some reason something's not working, I know I will find the answer on YouTube. And I think of the same with cruises. So for example, when I wanted to go to the Kimberley, I researched, I really started with on YouTube looking at that, because often you'll find either marketing videos from companies that are doing it, or you'll find someone's done it some way. So that's really how I do it. Now, the Yangtze cruise, very interesting, because I would love to do a Yangtze cruise. And the way I actually found that there was a television program, Jane McDonald had a cruising program, was actually one of my pieces of research. She had done that particular cruise. But I would rely a lot on travel agent, because the travel agent will normally, if they don't know, they through their network, I guess, will normally find there'll be some point agent, some point, they've got a name which I can't remember, but someone who's selling those kind of cruises, they will find that out, because often there's a specialist agency or whatever. That's how I would do it. Jake asking me around an upgrade bid. I don't know specifically, Jake, on if that number is a good one specifically, but they would normally give you a range. My thing, what I would do, Jake, is when you're looking at bidding, is I would go online and look at, if you were looking at that cabin, what it's going to cost you. So have a look at what you're paying for your current cabin. So I don't know if you'd say a balcony cabin or whatever you're in now. I would go online and have a look and see what the Haven cabin is currently selling for. And that will give you a good sense of, could you actually pay $1,000? I think, if I remember correctly, Jake, in the US, could you be paying $1,000 today and upgrading? Because I have been on many cruises before, not many, exaggerating. I've been on a few cruises where I've met people who've upgraded, and then suddenly realized afterwards that actually they've paid more than if they've just done it themselves. So I would have a look and see what the difference is. So for example, if you found it's about $1,700 to upgrade, you might decide, actually, I will just upgrade myself, and then I guarantee, because I can choose my own cabin and so on. But that would be my starting point, is you'll get a sense of the scale there. Also, I think what I would also do is I would, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. I got caught. I only saw a comment in the comment there, and I got completely lost my train of thought. Sorry, Jake, I lost what I was about to say around the bidding process. What was I going to say? Sorry, the other point, and I do talk about it in a recent video, the other thing is, bear in mind that the price is per person. So Jake, if you're traveling solo in that cabin, it's going to cost you double whatever you bid. And that's a watch out, which a friend of mine, I managed to stop doing. They were very excited because they put in a bid for an upgrade to Yacht Club. And they were like, oh my God, it's only whatever it was, $600 or £600 or whatever it was. I was like, oh, be careful, you're traveling solo. It's going to cost you twice that. So also bear in mind that it's a per person. So just watch that one out. That's very careful. Istanbul mentioned saying my pronunciation seems surprisingly accurate. I get told off a lot. The reason I'm quite concerned about I get, if I pronounce anything incorrectly, like my video I did last week around ports, I pronounced one of the places incorrectly. Now, normally I try and phonetically look at it. I often, you can go on like, I think it's a dictionary.com and stuff, where there also, you can play what it sounds like. And sometimes when I'm traveling, I actually go with my iPhone and I say, can you just, can you say the name of the place for me? So I've got it on a like a little voice note. But I'm really annoyed because I did my vlog for, because I'm going to do a vlog of my Kimberley cruise, which will come out next week. That's all I've edited and it's finished. But because I was just doing it when I was out and about, it's very different to what I normally do, not recording it to camera. I was just recording it every day out and about on land and stuff. And I've got two pronunciation things completely wrong. And it's really bugging me. And I've been trying to work out, do I then re-record that? or do I, as kind of edit it in, or do I literally just bring it up as a title saying, by the way, it's just pronounced whatever. I've gone with the other route because I think it's going to sound a bit like, it's going to be like one of those emails you get with, dear Gary, that it's going to be one of those, you know, with all those kind of funny voicemail things you get. Thank you, Boca Boys. Barbara Muckerman, it was driving me crazy. Barbara Muckerman, who's left to join committee. Thanks so much for adding that. Jake, I hope I've answered that. I hope I've answered that properly. Lauren, having bad experience with offshore call centers. Yeah, it's kind of Jeffrey making the point, actually, it's ironic there's a lot of negative opinions voiced on cruises, but at the same time, should capacities never be known? You're absolutely right. I mean, one of the things that's very interesting, watching both Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, and Viking have recently, in the last couple of months, had their earnings out. But what's really interesting about the Royal Caribbean group and the Norwegian group, they are averaging, I think it was between 105 106% capacity across their entire fleet. So they're basically sailing over double occupancy, which is how ships are done. So you're at this huge capacity. You know, talking about, I think Viking had spoken about something like, and don't quote me on the number, but it's like something crazy, like 80% of their 2024 inventory sold out and stuff. So you're right, it is really full. But maybe that's also why there's more negative stuff coming as well, perhaps, just because there's much more pressure on there. Some good discussions this week. I'm going to be asked a question which I damn well need to get myself on ambassador cruises, because I am asked this question constantly. So I need to get on ambassador cruises, because then at least I can say yes and point people in the direction of my content. I have not been on ambassador cruises. They are good value. I've spoken to some people I know have been on it. And some have really liked it, some have not liked it. So I mean, I think a lot of it hinges around, they are an incredibly good value line. The ships obviously are older ships, because they are. So I think if you're looking for a good value cruise, if you're looking for an adult-only cruise, most of their cruising is adult-only. They do have a couple of multi-generational cruises. In fact, the video that comes out probably the week after next, because I want to bring my vlog forward, I talk a little bit about Ambassador and how they are definitely an adult option. But I do need to get on Ambassador, because so many people ask me this question, and I will look at trying to squeeze Ambassador into next year. Ken asked me if I'm planning to sell on Fred Olsen. It's a good question. I've been on Fred Olsen a couple of times. I think I've been on Fred Olsen 3 times now, but always on Balmoral, so only on one ship. And I haven't been on the new Borealis and Bolette, is it? Which I think you have been on recently, haven't you, Ken, if I remember correctly? And there was this flurry of people going on Fred Olsen. So I would like to go back on Fred Olsen, but I don't have anything planned. It's one of those, I've got a list of lines that I need to revisit. And I would like to try the ships they brought from Holland America. My thing with Fred Olsen is it does feel very, I mean, it's very traditional and sort of quite old-fashioned in many ways, which has its appeal to it. But I would like to go back and try Fred Olsen. So it's a little bit like, on my list, it's there, but it keeps getting pushed down. But I would like to try their new ships. But I think you were on it quite recently. And there's been a flurry of people. I know Emma was on it, and we're putting Carol on it, I think, as well. And most people seem to have had a pretty good time. So Amit, hi there, Amit. What is the best ship for Alaska? So Amit, and I know Cherry's made the point around smaller ships, but I think one of the things that a lot of it hinges around what you're looking for, like so many things. So one of the things I would look at is I would actually start by looking at the itinerary. Where do you want to go to? How long do you want to go? But Alaska is getting really busy and very packed. And there is some pressure, like a place like Juneau, which are, they have one proposal to reduce the number of passengers that are allowed there on a Saturday. There's another much more dramatic one, which is going to like a ballot referendum this month, which is reducing it even further. So actually, going on smaller ships may increase your chances. Keep your hedge your bets, if it's saying. One of the things I would say, Amit, is I do think, though, that if you're going to Alaska, and for many people obviously will only go to Alaska once, I would focus on ships that go into Glacier Bay. because Glacier Bay is really absolutely magnificent. Now, there are only 7 cruise lines that are allowed to go into Glacier Bay. There's a bidding process to get a 10-year license. It's Holland America, Princess, Seabourn, Cunard, Viking, Royal Caribbean, and I've forgotten what the 7th one is, but I do actually, in the video that I talk about, if you go and look at the video, which I mentioned, which is about cruise ports, putting restrictions, I do talk about the 7th one in there. So, but Glacier Bay is so magnificent. So you often have to balance that between the big and small. I personally love going on the smaller ships. Now, and those, and I like going on itineraries which goes from kind of Seaward or Whittier down to Vancouver. It's slightly longer. If you really want to go and see the wilder side of Alaska, as it were, you can go on even smaller ships, which is like Uncruise or Hurtigruten does more of an expedition kind of experience that is definitely worth looking at. Bridget asked a question about Oceania Vista. I have a video about Oceania Vista, so maybe take a look at that, Bridget, because I'm also running out of time. I talk a little bit about Vista. I would say my key thing with them is get in really quickly to book the specialty restaurants. I do talk about many other things. Travel agent Walter is here. Walter is one of the 2 travel agents in the US that I recommend. So it's good to see Walter here as well. I get asked this question a lot. I probably should do more of a post about this. Do you have any suggestions for good vacation insurance companies for longer voyages? You're right, it's a really big challenge finding those. So, and the problem with insurance, a lot of it hinges on where you're based. So in the US, I know a lot of people lean towards Allianz. In the UK, I look at Stay Shore and All Clear, for example. But you're right. So I don't have a lot of recommendations around insurance because it is so local. But those are the good one, the good kind of starting, the good starting point. Keith asking me, have you ever used Igloo for booking cruise? No, I don't. Keith, I tend to prefer a kind of a more independent travel agent rather than kind of like a group or something that is more online like. Now, I haven't used Igloo, and I know they're very well known and very popular. I prefer to use, say, like Sarah Bolton, who is more independent. She works sort of for herself, but part of a bigger group, which gives the clout. Just because I feel like I know Sarah, if I have a problem, I can speak to her very easily. It's always her. It's not kind of a corporation, if you like. So I haven't booked through that. I tend to like that kind of relationship. But if anyone has better experience and has worked with Igloo and wants to comment, then definitely let Keith know. Peter asking the question, because of the anti-tourism demonstrations, do you think we'll start to see cruises to nowhere like what we did after COVID? So for those of you who have been following or haven't been following this, again, I talk about it in the video I did last week. I think it was the last week's video around, why so many more ports are putting restrictions on. But you're right, there's quite a lot of anti-tourism demonstrations, not just about cruising, more generally, particularly happening within Europe at the moment. I think we may, but I think it may also be driven a little bit more by a couple of things. One of which is mega ships. We're seeing at the same time that cruise ports are complaining about the amount of people going into ports. Cruise lines are launching bigger and bigger ships. Carnival launching announced 8,000 passenger ships and so on. But at the same time, we're seeing ports saying we want to have fewer mega ships coming in. So that's kind of okay. That doesn't quite fit with it overall. But also the shore side, the size of those ships limiting where they can go. So I think we will definitely see within the Caribbean, we're seeing it already, this real trend into short cruises on these big ships, heading either to ports like Bermuda or into the Bahamas or into private islands, which are a couple of days at sea, a private island or calling to one of those ports, turning around and coming back. So I think we will see more of that. Now, the challenge, of course, in Europe is there are fewer of those options, and there aren't any currently sort of created private island kind of experiences. Of course, fuel and stuff is a major part of the cost, although we're starting to see more pressure on cruise lines to sail at a slower speed because it reduces the amount of fuel they're burning, which is very appealing. Also, there have already been some agreed reductions in speed to help protect wildlife, such as whales, for example. So actually, cruises going slower, perhaps having more sea days could be a thing. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, and I think we may see a split happening, Peter, where the bigger mega ships, just because of their size, may end up becoming more around the resort experience, perhaps with some beach day at the end, which is easier in the Caribbean. And I think we will see a slightly different thing with smaller ships being more nimble, going to more kind of ports. That's my kind of guess, and we will see. Jeffrey wondered about his execution rather than excursion. He's been watching too many pirate videos. Yes, exactly. We do love a good pirate video. Absolutely watch a good pirate video indeed. So we have churned through time, and I'm sure there's many more questions and things coming that I have missed. So I will take a look at those and see if there's other ways I can answer them. But if not, please join me next week. So we'll do a live stream next Sunday, same time, same place. It's going to be scorching hot in London. I hope it's, if you like hot weather, I hope you have hot weather where you are. So I have a video out this week, which is around cruise cabins. And thanks so much for joining me. Hope you had a great time, and I will hopefully see you next week. Take care.